Nah, untuk lebih singkatnya saya persilahkan untuk Pak Mayarfas menyampaikan kata pembukaannya. Silakan Pak.
Selamat sore, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Bapak Ibu, teman-teman semua. Kita ketemu lagi untuk acara yang sudah lama juga kita tidak lakukan ya, yaitu pertemuan membahas isu-isu masalah-masalah yang kita hadapi bersama di Belanda ini. Sebagai warga negara Indonesia dengan menghadirkan beberapa pakar untuk mengetahui, mencari jalan keluar dari apa yang masalah yang kita hadapi ya. Dulu kita sudah beberapa kali mengadakan soal KDRT, soal macam-macam dulu ya. Nah, makanya pertemuan ini saya pikir anggap sebuah inisiatif kerjasama yang baik antara KBRI dengan penyelenggara. Terima kasih Bu Yuke, Bu Yasmin, dan teman-teman semua untuk acara ini yang sudah lama juga tidak kita lakukan, dan sekaligus kita bersilaturahmi secara virtual yang sudah lama juga kita tidak lakukan ya. Meskipun kondisi pandemi sebenarnya sudah baik, tapi pertemuan kali ini ya biar jangkauannya lebih banyak kita adakan secara virtual. Ini juga kelanjutan dari webinar kita sebelumnya. Dan update daripada beberapa peraturan di Belanda yang bisa atau yang mempengaruhi kehidupan kita secara nyata, langsung dan nyata di sini. Saya juga ingin menghimbau kalau ada hal-hal yang perlu kita diskusikan bersama, perlu hal-hal yang perlu kita cari jalan keluar bersama, segera silakan usulkan kepada KBRI untuk kita lakukan pembahasannya atau cari jalan keluarnya. Pada saat ini misalnya kita mengundang pakar hukum yang sangat mengerti undang-undang perkawinan di Belanda ini untuk kita ketahui bersama. Karena banyak hal-hal yang baru dari undang-undang perkawinan tersebut dan juga beberapa hal yang kita terima di KBRI baik berupa aduan maupun berupa minta penjelasan maupun pertanyaan yang beberapa kali kita disampaikan oleh warga negara kita di Belanda, terutama yang terkait dengan kawin campur ya. Karena pasangan Belanda Indonesia yang terdaftar jumlahnya cukup banyak sekali. Perkiranya sekitar 160.000 ya. Jadi mungkin lebih banyak. Kalau menurut saya itu lebih banyak. Nah, berbagai aspek dari perkawinan campur ini banyak sekali ya. Misalnya hak asuh, apalagi itu banyak sekali lah. Masalah dua aturan lah ya, dua budaya, dua kepribadian, dua cara, dua way of life, banyak hal yang harus dilakukan oleh pihak-pihak yang melakukannya. Jadi misalnya kita banyak orang Indonesia yang belum mau membicarakan hak pada saat awal karena mungkin kita risih atau malu ya. Nah, kami ingin warga kita di sini punya pemahaman yang jelas tentang apa yang perlu mereka ketahui. Pertama, undang-undang perkawinan, hak-hak kewajiban, undang-undang yang terkait lah dengan perkawinannya. Nah, diharapkan melalui webinar ini informasi tersebut bisa kita diskusikan. Kalau yang ingin bertanya, silakan bertanya. Nah, saya ingin membagi sedikit apa yang kita diterima. Saya ingin sampaikan, pertama tidak banyak kasus sekarang ini di masalah warga negara Indonesia ya. Ada. Mudah-mudahan akan cenderung hilang lah. Dibandingkan waktu zaman COVID dulu memang agak banyak masalah yang dihadapi ya. Tapi dari beberapa hal yang kita lihat, yang kita kadang-kadang harus mencari jawaban dari pihak luar. Misalnya soal KDRT. Apa itu KDRT? Banyak orang kita nganggap dimarahin aja, udah KDRT itu belum KDRT sebenarnya. Masa suaminya bekerja berkata keras, wah KDRT belum. Tidak. Jadi hal-hal itu misalnya gimana cari pertolongan, gimana membuat laporan, diusir dari tempat tinggal, dicabut sponsorshipnya, yang gitu-gitu. Juga ada hak asuh anak ya, hak asuh anak, tunjangan anak, identitas, fraud identitas, apa ya, kewarganegaraan anak dan lain-lain. Ini juga ada Pak, harusnya ada Pak imigrasi kan nih. Nanti juga tanya-tanya. Juga ada harta dan perkawinannya yang juga beberapa tidak punya perjanjian ya sebelumnya. Jadi dan ada beberapa hal yang mungkin tidak terpikirkan sebelumnya, misalnya gimana hak waris di Indonesia, karena ada beberapa pihak Belanda, pasangan Belanda yang setelah pisah itu menuntut juga hak waris di Indonesia yang dari orang tuanya. Ya kan, menurut dia itu berhak. Ada perkawinan kan, juga ada perkawinan itu berlangsung sebelumnya, ada perkawinan sebelumnya, ini perkawinan kedua, ketiga ya. Nah, yang dari hasil perkawinan pertama itu ada hak-hak, mereka nuntut hak, keluarga lama itu nuntut hak. Mungkin punya anak dua dulu, satu, mereka nuntut hak untuk semuanya, termasuk yang tadi itu, yang di Indonesia, yang hasilnya, termasuk macam-macam, termasuk hak waris yang di Indonesia, hak warisan dari mana-mana gitu. Jadi itu perlu mungkin jelas-jelas dari awal ya. Makanya itu juga izin tinggal ya, juga banyak tuh ya menyangkut izin tinggal ya. Ini juga banyak hal yang melemahkan kita karena sangat tergantung dengan izin tinggal kita. Jadi itulah. Tapi yang penting ya kita ketahui apa aturannya dan apa yang kita harus lakukan, Bapak Ibu semua. Dan kalau harus dilakukan, lakukan. Ya, memang mungkin ya apa ya, di sini kan negara hukum ya. Semuanya tuh ada jalur hukumnya, dan jangan berpikir sesuatu tidak mungkin terjadi. Itu mungkin terjadi aja. Ya, hak tidak dari kita, dari pihak pasangan kita, tapi pihak lain gitu. Itu juga kesulitan bagi kita di KBRI untuk mencari jalan keluarnya karena ada pihak-pihak lainnya. Jadi kalau ada aturan yang jelas, kesepakatan yang jelas, biasanya itu kan gampang. Jadi ya hal-hal yang ingin ketahui, dan sekali lagi saya ingin sampaikan, kalau ada masalah-masalah yang perlu kita bicarakan bersama seperti masalah ini ya, ada hal yang kita ingin ketahui bersama seperti isu ini, undang-undang perkawinan. Hubungi KBRI, kita lakukan hal-hal seperti ini. Ini menyangkut kita semua, ya. Jadi kita lakukan, kita undang pakarnya, kita diskusikan, kita cari jalan keluar. Bagaimana kalau itu kita hadapi, atau salah satu dari saudara kita menghadapinya, ya. Jadi mudah-mudahan diskusi ini dapat memberi manfaat bagi kita semua. Thank you to all speaker. Terima kasih kepada Pak Ibu Yasmin sebagai moderator, selalu moderator tetap nih, Ibu Yasmin ya. Meneer Kleinweg, Meneer Groen, thank you very much for your assistance, for your cooperation, for your support, and I hope for your assistance to all Indonesian or Indonesian citizen in Netherlands for your cooperation, and I hope this webinar will develop will be a develop networking among Indonesian citizens to solve problem and to support each other for the problem that they are facing. Thank you very much for your support in this regard, Kleinweg and Mr. Groen. Thank you. Silakan Bu.
Terima kasih banyak Bapak Mayerfas. Saya izin jadi moderator Pak. Semoga tidak bosan dan semoga saya bisa memberikan yang terbaik untuk para warga negara Indonesia di Belanda ini dan juga yang ada di Indonesia saya lihat. Terima kasih. Di sini kita bersama dua ahli hukum, praktisi hukum, advokat Kleweh dan juga advokat Groen, di mana advokat Groen ini spesialisasinya adalah family law, hukum keluarga, dan advokat Groen itu spesialisasinya adalah hukum imigrasi. Untuk profil lebih lanjutnya saya sudah taruh di chat mengenai informasi mereka. Pertama-tama kita akan mulai dengan penjelasan dari advokat Groen mengenai hukum keluarga. So, please, Mr. Groen, I give you the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for inviting us and having us. What I will do is I will give you all a short outline of Dutch family law, of Dutch international family law. And one of the big questions is if you marry abroad, so if you marry outside the Netherlands, if this foreign marriage can be recognized in the Netherlands. It's important to know that if a marriage, when it's solemnized outside the Netherlands, it will be acknowledged as legally valid if the marriage is legally valid in accordance with the laws of the state where it was solemnized. It sounds a bit legal, but in order to have it acknowledged in the Netherlands, it must be a legally valid marriage, like for instance in Indonesia. Do you want to translate or?
Yes. Jadi saya akan mentranslate setiap poin-poin yang akan dijelaskan Mr. Groen. Mr. Groen, secara singkat aja, Pak Groen menjelaskan bahwa apabila kita menikah di luar Belanda itu harus diakui dalam hukum Belanda dan sebaliknya. Yes, Mr. Groen, it's just a short translation.
The condition that a marriage must be legally valid pertains to both the validity of the form and the requirements in accordance with, let's have an example of, like Indonesian law, in accordance with Indonesian law. And I'm not an Indonesian lawyer, but Indonesian law, Indonesian family law is quite complicated. There are various law systems within Indonesia which have different requirements for like a marriage, and then there is like an umbrella law in Indonesia, the government law, which requires that a valid marriage in accordance with the indigenous regulations of Indonesia must be registered, publicly registered within a certain time limit. And this makes the marriage valid in Indonesia. So if you have just, my bahasa is not very well, but if you have just a buku nikah and you do not register your marriage, your Muslim marriage, then it will be not accepted in this country as a valid marriage. So it has to be officially registered through a government institution in Indonesia according to Indonesian law. Then it will be recognized. Of course, this might have consequences, for instance, when children are born. If there is just a buku nikah and children are born outside your indigenous marriage, but not registered in Indonesia, then according to Dutch law, these children are born outside a marriage. Do you want to translate?
Yes.
Jadi
Pak Groen menjelaskan juga karena harus untuk diakui itu harus sesuai dengan peraturan-peraturan negara setempat. Misalkan seperti di Indonesia ini, hukum keluarganya itu agak rumit karena menikah dan mendapatkan buku nikah itu tidak cukup. Jadi setelah itu harus didaftarkan pada institusi hukum yang ada di Indonesia. Dan konsekuensinya itu adalah untuk anak-anak, karena apabila kita menikah dan mempunyai hanya buku nikah dan belum mendaftarkan pernikahan kita, itu bagi hukum Belanda, anak-anak ini terdaftarnya di luar nikah, begitu. Jadi itu yang dijelaskan oleh Bapak Kroen. Yes.
Yeah, the same goes for the birth of children in Indonesia. Of course, the birth of a child must also be registered within a certain time frame, within certain days. It must be registered. Nowadays in Indonesia, things are a lot more efficient. But when I look at elderly people, well, I'm not so young anymore, but a generation before me, then you see that things sometimes go wrong. And then we need all kinds of statements or declarations from official government, Indonesian government institutions, explaining the situation. Of course, then it's up to the Dutch court to accept it or not, or to a Dutch municipality to accept it or not. Usually it will go like we want to, but it takes a lot of time and effort to adjust these things which should have been done in the first place correctly. But nowadays things go a lot better. Another question is if there is a marriage abroad, if you can divorce in this country. And I will give you an example. An Indonesian woman marries a Dutch person. The Dutch person goes back to this country, to the Netherlands, and the Indonesian woman stays in Indonesia. The Dutch man doesn't care anymore about his marriage, and the Dutch woman wants to divorce. She can divorce. She can be the petitioner of a divorce in this country, as long as the husband has his official whereabouts in this country. Then she can be the petitioner. And the Dutch court will apply Dutch law. So she does not have to state why she wants to divorce. She just has to state that the marriage is not good. And this is what they call irretrievable breakdown of the marriage. And you do not have to motivate, you don't have to specify this. So there is almost a 99.9% success rate when you want to divorce in this country. The Dutch or the Indonesian woman can also, when she has no income or assets, she can apply for Dutch subsidized legal aid. So she will get, to say it very shortly, a free lawyer in this country. We can have her a form filled out that she has no income, and we can apply for this legal aid, and she will not have to pay any costs for the proceedings. Do you want to translate?
Yes.
Right?
Jadi yang dijelaskan oleh Bapak Kroen adalah kelahiran anak-anak itu juga harus didaftarkan dalam waktu tertentu di Indonesia itu. Sekarang prosesnya sudah efisien, tapi masa lalu itu belum teratur dengan baik. Maka dari itu harus ada pernyataan dari institusi di Indonesia. Dan apakah pernyataan tersebut diterima oleh institusi Belanda itu harus disetujui atau tidak oleh institusi Belanda, itu masih belum pasti, dan itu masih ada prosesnya begitu. Jadi Tapi untungnya saat ini semua prosedurnya itu sudah efisien, jadi sudah lebih mudah, kata advokat Groen. Dan ada suatu kasus apabila suatu pasangan, misalkan perempuan Indonesia menikah dengan laki-laki Belanda di Indonesia menikahnya, lalu laki-laki tersebut kembali ke Belanda dan perempuannya masih tinggal di Indonesia, lalu tiba-tiba sang suami sudah tidak mau lagi mengurusi pernikahan mereka, dan pertanyaannya adalah apakah bisa melakukan perceraian di Belanda. Si perempuan Indonesia ini bisa mengajukan perceraian dan pengadilan Belanda akan menerapkan hukum Belanda. Dan 99% itu perceraian itu akan berhasil, bisa dilaksanakan, dan meskipun perempuannya di Indonesia, itu bisa mendapatkan subsidi bantuan hukum dari Belanda, yang berarti prosesnya mendapatkan advokat dengan gratis dan juga tidak proses hukum begitu. Yes, meneer Groen.
Also, to give an example, exactly the other way around. For instance, an Indonesian lady comes to this country for a family visit or for holiday, and she decides to stay in this country, to overstay in this country, as in never to leave this country. And she is married to a husband, a man in Indonesia or any other place. And she wants a divorce because she met a person in this country and so she wants to marry this person, for instance. But she wants to get a divorce. That is also possible when she has her whereabouts. You can get a divorce in this country even if you are not a registered citizen. If you can prove that your, as they call it, your habitual residence is in this country, you can submit a request to the court. Then the question is, of course, how can you prove that you are a resident in this country, that you have your actual whereabouts in this country? And that is very based on the facts. So when you enter this country, see that you go, unless you're not sick, but see that you go to a doctor, to a pharmacy, get a receipt for this. Before you want to submit a divorce request to the court, wire some money to your brother or sister in Indonesia and get a receipt for this. The court will accept this because it proves that you are actually living or being in this country. Then you can go to a Dutch court and the Dutch court will apply Dutch law, of course, and then you will get your divorce.
Ya, jadi seperti contoh lain misalkan perempuan Indonesia, dia datang ke Belanda itu hanya untuk liburan, lalu dia overstay di Belanda ini, dan dia punya suami di luar Belanda misalkan, dan dia mau cerai dengan suaminya ini, dia harus bisa bisa diurus di Belanda, tetapi dia harus membuktikan bahwa dia tinggal di Belanda. Bagaimana cara dia membuktikan tinggal di Belanda itu? Misalkan dengan visa masuknya dia ke Belanda, atau selama di Belanda dia pernah ke dokter atau ke apotik dan dia punya bukti kalau dia pernah ke apotik tersebut, atau sebelum cerai itu dia pernah mengirimkan uang dari Belanda. Dan bukti pengiriman uangnya itu bisa menjadikan bukti kalau dia memang tinggal di Belanda. Maka dari itu nanti pengadilan Belanda akan menerapkan hukum Belanda untuk proses perceraiannya. Yes, Mr. Groen.
And if you want to divorce, do not tell it to your spouse. Do not tell it to your wife or do not tell it to your husband. I will let them know. Or any other lawyer, of course, but because it's important that you are the first to submit a petition to the Dutch court. When you, for instance, tell your husband in Indonesia, I want to get a divorce, then he might think that he must be the first to go to an Indonesian court. But if there is any other court first, then a Dutch court will wait until there is a decision from this court in this other country. And why would a Indonesian man choose for an Indonesian court? Because the maintenance alimony regulations for a wife are different and more easy for the husband than in this country. And then we will have a huge challenge to adjust this in this country. So don't tell it, be the first in this country.
Ada tips dari Mr. Groen.
It's just a tip, yeah.
Yes. Apabila mau cerai, jangan bilang ke suami atau istri yang ada di luar Belanda ini. Kenapa? Katanya, biarkan lawyer kita yang bilang ke suami atau istri yang ada di luar Belanda. Kenapa begitu? Karena apabila kita bilang ke suami atau istri yang ada di luar Belanda dan mereka langsung melakukan proses perceraiannya di pengadilan di Indonesia misalkan atau di luar Belanda itu, maka pengadilan di Belanda tidak bisa melakukan proses perceraian dan harus menunggu keputusan dari pengadilan yang ada di luar Belanda ini. Kenapa para suami atau para suami itu lebih senang untuk melakukan proses perceraiannya di Indonesia? Karena di Indonesia itu proses alimentasi atau proses tunjangan untuk memberikan tunjangan istri atau suami itu lebih mudah dan kayak sepertinya lebih murah juga ya daripada proses alimentasi yang ada di Belanda. Maka dari itu kalau mau cerai jangan bilang-bilang dulu. Ya.
And why is this important? Because in certain countries and in a lot of Muslim countries, there is no alimony for the ex-spouse. There is, when you marry, one of the obligations before you marry is that in the marriage contract is mentioned the sadak, the amount of money, or in some countries gold, which you must give to your spouse, to your wife. And this amount of money is seen as some kind of security for the wife, for her life, for the future. And when there is a divorce, a court can order that the husband must pay a lump sum amount of money one time. So not for an extended period of 5 or 6 or 12 years like in this country.
Yeah.
And in this country, alimony is calculated based on what the person needs, financially needs, and also they will take into account what is the financial capacity of the person who has to pay the amount of alimony. So it must be, it can be wise, and you must really do so to be the first to request a divorce or request alimony in this country. Like, for instance, if there has not been a divorce and there are children born, then the children are entitled to some financial a sum of money for their benefit, right? In this case, when it's children concerned, then always the Dutch law applies. This is European regulations. Sorry. So even if the child lives in Indonesia, then Dutch law concerning the financial contribution of money then the Dutch law applies. And this is also calculated on what the child needs, and of course the financial capacity of the other parent, of the parent who should contribute to the child.
Ya, ini penting sekali ya tips yang tadi itu. Bukan apa-apa karena ada beberapa negara Muslim itu mereka tidak mengatur mengenai alimentasi ini untuk mantan suami atau mantan istri, karena dianggapnya itu sebagai sedekah gitu. Jadi hanya pemberiannya tuh satu kali selesai gitu. Dan itu tidak setiap tahun atau dalam berapa tahun untuk memberikan tunjangan mantan istri atau mantan suami. Lain kalau di Belanda ini alimentasi itu dijumlahkan dari kebutuhan keuangan dari si mantan istri atau suami itu, dan berapa yang harus dibayarkan itu ada peraturannya. Jadi lebih baik kita yang lebih dulu mengajukan perceraian ini agar berdasarkan hukum Belanda yang dipakai. Apalagi apabila kita memiliki anak-anak tersebut itu berhak untuk mendapatkan alimentasi dari orang tua mereka, dan berdasarkan hukum Eropa itu untuk anak-anak itu lebih terlindungi ya, karena hukum Belanda yang akan dipakai. Jadi meskipun anak-anaknya itu lahir di Indonesia, apabila bapak mereka orang Belanda, tetap akan hukum Belanda yang akan dipakai untuk hak anak-anak tersebut.
So women can have a lot of rights which they are not aware about. So children, like in Indonesia or in the Philippines, living there with the mother and the father living in this country, and they do not know what they are entitled to. It's important to know that they can be entitled to a substantial amount of financial contribution based on Dutch standards, and that can make a lot of difference in their daily life in Indonesia or on the Philippines or any place else, right?
Yeah.
And people just do not know that. So also in these cases, people might get a right for subsidized legal aid in this country, free legal aid, if applicable. I can track the spouse or the partner or the father of the child, because everything normally is registered in this country. So normally I can find a person. I can request his financial info. I can calculate based on Dutch standards the amount of alimony, and if he does not agree, if this person does not agree to pay, I can go to court.
Yes.
Even if my client lives in Indonesia.
Ya, jadi banyak sekali perempuan-perempuan entah di Indonesia atau di Filipina itu tidak sadar bahwa sebenarnya mereka tuh punya hak yang besar sekali gitu loh. Apabila mereka menikah dengan orang Belanda dan diceraikan dan memiliki anak di Indonesia, itu sebenarnya mereka bisa dengan subsidi bantuan hukum ditolong oleh advokat di Belanda ini, seperti misalkan meneer Groen, beliau dapat men-trace gitu, mencari mantan suami yang menceraikan di Belanda ini, karena biasanya itu sudah terregister ya di Belanda ini, semua registrasinya teratur, dan juga beliau dapat meminta hak daripada wanita Indonesia atau anak-anaknya yang ada di Indonesia itu untuk meminta keuangan dan juga menghitung keuangan dan alimentasi untuk yang menjadi haknya anak-anak dan perempuan Indonesia. Yes, benar. Yeah.
Yes, and it's important to know that child support lasts until the child is 21 years. That can be a significant time. In some Muslim countries, like when you have a daughter, you have a girl as a child, then some laws in some Muslim countries say you have the obligation to maintain your child until she is married. That's not the case in this country. You should provide for your child financially at least until she is 21 years old. And if the Dutch man says, yes, but I married you, I have children, but I have also obligations of paying money to a former spouse, then the Dutch law says that child support, financial maintenance for children always has priority spousal alimony. So the child always has the way of right in these kind of cases when Dutch law applies.
Ya, jadi dukungan untuk anak itu hingga si anak umur 21 tahun. Di beberapa negara muslim itu ada aturan kalau anak perempuan itu dukungan dari bapak itu hingga menikah, tapi di Belanda itu hanya sampai 21 tahun saja. Dan bila si bapak bilang, tapi saya harus memberikan alimentasi atau dukungan untuk ex mantan saya yang lain, itu tapi berdasarkan hukum Belanda, anak itu lebih prioritas daripada mantan istri atau mantan suami, begitu. Jadi hak anak itu yang terutama. Yes.
And it's what I began with saying that it's important that you register everything when you are married in Indonesia, when a child is born in Indonesia. When you do not register your marriage and children are born, they are born outside a marriage. The marriage cannot be recognized in this country. Children born here are not born within the marriage. That could mean that the child gets the wrong citizenship. The child follows, in that case, the citizenship of the mother automatically. The child gets the name of the mother, and it will be very hard to adjust this. I know that the law on names in Indonesia is also very I say very complicated. But it will be hard to have this adjusted. There is a solution when children are born outside the marriage, and this is what they call legal determination of paternity. A legal determination of paternity. And that means that you ask the court to state that this person is the father of this certain child. Of course, you cannot just say that any person is the father of this child, so you have to have some proof, like photos or WhatsApp messages, or you have to prove a basis of having had a relationship with this person. And what will happen next is that the Dutch court will order a DNA test. This DNA test can be done also in any country of the world, also of course in Indonesia. The Dutch court normally will order that Verilabs, that is the DNA laboratory in this country who will conduct the DNA test, that Verilabs will take the DNA of the father in this country and of the child, for instance, in Indonesia. And then the mother and the child will go to the Dutch embassy in Indonesia after having made an appointment, of course. and there will come a Indonesian doctor to the embassy and take a DNA sample and send it to Verilabs in this country. And when there is a DNA match, the Dutch court will determine the paternity, the fatherhood, the paternity of the child. This will mean that the child will become a Dutch citizen if the father is a Dutch citizen, of course. This only goes before the 18th birthday of the child. So when there is a DNA match and there is a legal determination of paternity before the 18th birthday of the child, and the father is Dutch, then the child will become Dutch. And Mr. Kleiweg can, of course, elaborate on this, on what will happen next, or what he can do next. And also, these kind of proceedings can be done based on subsidized Dutch legal aid.
Okay, because we are running of time, Mr. Groen, I
Sorry,
will.
I'm really enjoying this.
Yes, me too. But we have a time limit, so
Okay.
I will translate this first. Jadi kalau bisa, kata Mr. Groen, semuanya itu harus didaftarkan, menikah, memiliki anak, karena apabila tidak didaftarkan itu bisa dianggap sebagai pernikahan luar anak di luar pernikahan, maka sulit untuk diakui anak-anaknya. Apabila anaknya ini memiliki kewarganegaraan ibu, memakai nama ibu, jadi akan sulit untuk menuntut hak mereka kepada si bapak yang misalkan ada di Belanda. Tetapi bisa juga menggunakan prosedur yang namanya legal determination of paternity. Jadi membuktikan harus membuktikan bahwa anak tersebut benar-benar anak dari bapak tersebut misalkan. Tapi bagaimana membuktikannya itu bisa melalui WhatsApp atau bukti-bukti foto, dan juga apabila sudah disetujui oleh pengadilan akan memintakan dan menyuruh si bapak untuk melakukan tes DNA. Jadi ibu dan anak melakukan tes DNA di Indonesia misalkan, dan juga lalu mereka membawa hasil tesnya ke Dutch Embassy, kedutaan Belanda yang ada di Jakarta, lalu ternyata match dengan tes DNA bapaknya yang ada di Belanda ini, maka apabila match bisa dimintakan hak si anak bisa menjadi warga negara Belanda dan juga mendapatkan hak-haknya dari sang bapak. Tapi untuk melakukan match DNA ini dan juga paternity ini itu harus dilakukan sebelum sang anak ini berulang tahun yang ke-18. Untuk semua proses hukumnya itu bisa disubsidi. Oke, Mr. Before we go to Mr. Kleiweg, maybe you want to give very important information, and otherwise we can go on later in the question and answer.
Okay, well then I say terima kasih and Ramadan Mubarak for everyone.
Thank you very much. Okay, then I will give next to Mr. Kleiweg to inform about the immigration law in Netherlands. You are on mute, Mr. Kleiweg.
Zo,
Yes.
dit werkt. Mr. Raya, Mr. Ambassador, I want to first of all thank everybody for this opportunity to talk for the Indonesian community, because I think, at least for me, this is enjoyable, and I hope we will give useful information. For all listeners, I would like to say all those rights you hear about are also applicable or accessible for those who are in Indonesia. Right for subsidized legal aid, access to court to start procedures. It is all possible even if you're in Indonesia and even if you are not financially well off. For that reason, I think it would also be nice if there are amongst the listeners lawyers, social workers, notaries in Indonesia to have contact with them and exchange thoughts and ideas about how to work better together.
Yes, jadi Mr. Kleweh menjelaskan bahwa semua orang itu berhak, seperti juga di Indonesia, atas subsidi bantuan hukum, akses hukum, dan lain sebagainya. Jadi penting untuk memiliki juga kerjasama dengan lembaga bantuan hukum atau pengacara-pengacara yang ada di Indonesia. Itu Mr. Kleweh. Yes.
What I would like to talk about is migration law and basically the standard issue. What if I have a husband or a partner in the Netherlands and our relationship breaks up? What is going to happen? Of course, for how to get the relationship and how to apply for a permit, that is quite well established. That is also the nice thing to do. You have time to think about it and you go to a lawyer or contact somebody else to help you with that. The problem is when things go bad, what to do next?
Biasanya banyak pertanyaan dari kawan-kawan itu adalah apabila saya memiliki partner atau suami dan tiba-tiba relasinya berantakan dan pisah, itu apa yang harus dilakukan?
Let's take an example, basically standard example. Woman from Indonesia has a marriage or a partnership, because that's the same, can be man, woman, can be also same-sex marriage or relationship. That's not relevant here. But we have a person from Indonesia and there are two children, little ones, one if you are 1 year old and the other one 5 years old or something like that. And the relationship or the marriage breaks up. What to do next? First rule is always be financially independent and also do your inburgering. How do you translate it? Civic integration course, because then you learn the language, you learn to understand the country, and you know how things work. And from somebody who is not knowledgeable, for them life is difficult. But if you are knowledgeable, life is much easier. So even if you don't like to do inburgering, I advise you to do it.
Ya. Jadi misalkan ada kasus seorang ibu punya 2 anak, anaknya masih kecil-kecil, terus dan pisah. Apa yang harus dilakukan? Yang pertama itu Mr. Kleweh menjelaskan bahwa harus memiliki financially independent ya, jadi kemandirian dalam keuangan. Dan juga harus juga telah melakukan inburgering atau reintegrasi yang ada di Belanda itu. Karena itu penting, dengan inburgering itu kita memiliki pengetahuan mengenai Belanda, dan apabila memiliki pengetahuan itu akan lebih mudah untuk lepas dari ikatan relasi yang tadi.
I'm very much in favor of girl power. Then the inburgering, the integration is also important, because in the Netherlands it's the rule that if your marriage lasted 5 years and you had a residence permit for 5 years and it breaks up, then you can get yourself an independent permit if you are financially self-sufficient and if you have done your civic integration course and passed it, then you will get the permit without problem.
Ya. Jadi kalau misalkan sudah menikah 5 tahun, lalu ternyata pisah, dan ternyata sudah melakukan inburgering, sudah memiliki finansial yang mandiri, maka kita bisa mengajukan izin tinggal secara mandiri. Jadi tidak perlu dengan ikatan relasi dari mantan tersebut.
But there are always problems, and often the relationship breaks up before 5 years. If it's only a breakup of a relationship and your partner or husband is not an EU citizen, then there is a problem, because then you do not meet the requirements. If your partner is an EU citizen, then the requirement is that you have been together for 3 years, of which 1 year in the Netherlands. Then you can also get an independent residence permit.
Ya, jadi tapi kalau sebelum 5 tahun terus berpisah, bagaimana? Apabila mantan kita itu bukan EU residents ya, bukan warga negara atau penduduk eh, Uni Eropa, maka itu peraturannya akan lebih sulit karena bila mantan kita adalah orang Uni Eropa, itu meskipun kita baru 1 atau 3 tahun bersama dia, maka kita bisa langsung melakukan mengajukan permintaan untuk izin tinggal yang mandiri tersebut.
Some people think they can avoid doing these civic integration courses and ask for a waiver, so-called vrijstelling of it, and that can be granted, but only if you are physically or mentally unable to do the study. So in 99.9% of the cases, well, 99%, you will not get a waiver of this. So please be aware that you must do your course.
Ya, tapi penting bahwa kita harus sudah melakukan inburgering tersebut, karena tanpa inburgering itu akan sulit diterima oleh pengadilan, kecuali kita bisa meminta untuk mengajukan tidak usah melakukan inburgering, itu bisa, tetapi biasanya hanya diterima oleh pengadilan itu apabila kita memiliki masalah fisik atau mental. Kalau tidak, pasti akan ditolak oleh pengadilan. Jadi penting untuk melakukan inburgering tersebut.
Also, people might say, is there no exception from the 5 years rule, the requirement of having a permit? And there is an exception to that, but that is in the case of matrimonial violence.
Ya. Ada pengecualian nggak? Haruskah kita stay dengan orang ini sampai 5 tahun? Itu ada pengecualiannya itu bila terdapat kekerasan rumah tangga.
And that matrimonial violence must have been the reason why the relationship or the marriage broke up. So it is not so that you can say, last year I had matrimonial violence, I suffered it, we tried it for another year and it doesn't work, and now we're breaking up, because then there is no connection between the violence and the breakup. There must be a clear connection between the violence and the breakup of the marriage.
Iya, tapi kekerasan rumah tangga itu bukan ya waktu itu kita putus karena ada kekerasan, lalu kita balik lagi, tapi terus sekarang kita putus lagi. Nah, itu tidak bisa seperti itu, karena itu nanti tidak ada koneksi atas kekerasan tersebut gitu. Jadi itu tidak bisa diterapkan apabila terjadi putus dan lalu kembali, lalu putus lagi, seperti itu.
Also, the matrimonial violence must be substantiated. You must provide evidence, you must file a complaint at the police station. The doctor, your general practitioner, must know about the matrimonial violence. If you have been violated physically, then there might be traces of that on your body. Don't wait for a couple of weeks until everything is healed and go to the doctor then, and then to the police station. No. If something happens, you go to the police right away and you go to the doctor right away. That's very important, because you must be able to provide evidence and substantiate your claim of matrimonial violence. Everybody can say that there was matrimonial violence. My wife can accuse me of that. It happened 2 months ago, but nothing will be seen, nothing will be visible. I might be the victim of matrimonial violence. Maybe now you're laughing a little bit, but it can also happen to men. It's not so that all men are violent and all women are victims. It sometimes happens the other way around. There even are what they call blijf van mijn lijfhuizen for men. Of course, for a man, it's not easy to admit that he has been beaten up by his wife, but it happens.
Ya, jadi kekerasan dalam pernikahan itu harus dibuktikan juga. Itu penting memiliki bukti-bukti. Jadi apabila mengalami kekerasan, segera melaporkannya pada polisi atau segera melaporkan juga kepada dokter atau dokter keluarga ya. Jangan menunggu sampai sembuh dulu lukanya. atau laporannya nanti setelah 2 bulan kemudian, itu sulit untuk dibuktikan. Jadi harus segera langsung melaporkan ke polisi dan ke dokter. Yeah.
If you're in such a situation of matrimonial violence, do not try to carry the burden, but seek support right away. You have the police in the Netherlands. They're nice, believe it or not, they're nice. We have Veilig Thuis, we have women organizations, we have sociaal wijkteams. Don't try to carry the burden and keep it going for as long as you can. No, stand up for your rights and claim your rights.
Ya, jadi kekerasan rumah tangga itu tidak hanya terjadi pada perempuan, tapi juga pada laki-laki. Ini banyak juga terjadi. Bahkan kalau laki-laki tersebut juga tidak mau mengakui bahwa mengalami kekerasan, itu mereka harus juga segera melaporkan. Dan Mr. Kleweh juga bilang bahwa segera cari pertolongan, jangan diam aja, jangan dipendam sendiri, harus segera cari pertolongan ke polisi, karena polisi itu apabila berkaitan dengan kekerasan rumah tangga, mereka akan langsung bantu. Dan juga ke dokter, dan juga banyak organisasi lainnya, organisasi perempuan, organisasi ada namanya Veilig Thuis, itu untuk keamanan di rumah, mereka akan segera membantu.
Also contact a specialized lawyer, specialized for migration law. You can find them on the website for the Specialistenvereniging Migratierechtadvocaten. And Ms. Soraya will be able to give you a link to the website. I'm of course a member of that organization also. And then at least you know that you have a lawyer specialized in migration law. Not every lawyer can do migration law, and migration lawyers cannot do other kind of law. There is a reason for the specialism.
Ya, jadi juga penting untuk memiliki advokat yang mengerti mengenai hukum imigrasi ini. Bisa dicari di mereka ada perkumpulan untuk para advokat imigrasi, dan nanti bisa kita share infonya.
Now we've spent enough time about matrimonial violence. It's time for nicer things. Important is also the nationality of the father of the children, because if there is not, the children are not born within a marriage, but the father of the children is Dutch, even if you're not in a relationship with him anymore or not at all, then the children eventually will be Dutch citizens, and the mother will have the right to reside with the citizens, to take care of them. So that is an important reason why you can have a residence permit in the Netherlands. And it's also applicable if you're in Indonesia and you're the mother of a child, you have been impregnated by a Dutchman. That might lead to Dutch children and to the right for alimentatie, but also the right to stay in the Netherlands with your children.
Ya, jadi penting untuk mengetahui juga kewarganegaraan dari sang bapak, karena apabila bapaknya adalah warga negara Belanda, maka anak meskipun di luar pernikahan itu masih bisa diusahakan untuk mendapatkan haknya, dan juga bisa untuk mendapatkan hak untuk kewarganegaraan Belanda. Sehingga apabila anak memiliki kewarganegaraan Belanda, maka sang ibu bisa stay di Belanda untuk mengurus sang anak. Mr. Kleweh, I need to inform you that we are running of time also. So do you have some important information that you would like to share, and then we go on with the question and answer?
Okay. In case of problems with children and marriage, always contact a lawyer. They will and tell the lawyer really what's up, and the lawyer will work it out for you. If there are possibilities or not, because you need to know where you are. Even if there are no possibilities at the moment, you must know that, then you know what to do next. What's also important is that you do not shy away from solving your problems. In the Netherlands, we have a system we call the juridisch loket. You can ask there all kinds of questions free of charge. You will be supported by those people in a friendly manner, and will be sent to a specialized lawyer if necessary. And if it is about migration law, you might as well go directly to a lawyer for that.
Yeah.
My advice is always look for the lawyer and send the lawyer an email with the details of your problem and say, look, lawyer, this is my problem. Can you help me with it? And a decent lawyer will always give you an answer and will not charge you for that.
Okay.
There's also the possibility for people from abroad. Mr. Groen and I have been working out a little scheme, if I may say so. And Ms. Soraya might be able to provide you with the website of DILA, that is dila.contact. And then, even if you're in Indonesia or somewhere else, you can send an email to us. We have this problem, or I have this problem. How can we solve that? And DILA, which is a kind of tool, will provide that you will get in contact with a lawyer who can sort your problem out. Not necessarily me, could be Mr. Groen or somebody else, but a lawyer suitable for your problem.
Yes. Sorry, what is DILA stand for? Dutch
Intercontinental Legal Aid. And the reason why we called it so is that in the past, quite a lot of men impregnated women all over the world. And when things became a little bit complicated, the men ran away and they thought, well, there are 2 continents and 2 oceans between us. My problem is solved. No, not anymore. It's now intercontinental legal aid, Dutch intercontinental legal aid. And basically, there's no hiding anymore.
Yes. Okay, then I will explain it in bahasa. Jadi penting untuk juga berkomunikasi atau menjelaskan segala masalah langsung kepada lawyer atau advokat, mencari bantuan hukum. Bisa juga melalui yuridis loket yang ada di kota-kota, dan apabila memiliki lawyer bisa langsung meng-email permasalahannya secara detail dalam email tersebut sehingga bisa langsung mendapatkan advice. Dan juga kebetulan Bapak Kleweh dan Mr. Groen juga membentuk suatu yayasan yang dinamakan Dutch Intercontinental Legal Aid, ya. Jadi bantuan hukumnya itu tidak hanya untuk orang-orang yang ada di Belanda, tapi semua orang-orang yang memiliki kaitannya dengan Belanda meskipun mereka posisinya di Indonesia tapi memiliki relasi atau mantan relasi di Belanda dengan orang Belanda, itu bisa untuk dibantu. Demikian presentasi dari para advokat ini. Kami akan lanjut dengan question and answer. Untuk pertanyaan, teman-teman bisa langsung mengajukan pertanyaan melalui dengan mengajukan raising hand, ya. Jadi ada fitur reaction yang ada di Zoom, dan di situ ada raise hand. Apabila memiliki pertanyaan bisa langsung saya kasih kesempatan. Oke, saya lihat ada Richard De Vretes. Silahkan Richard De Vretes.
Yes, ma'am. Hello, everybody. Nice.
Hello, sir.
Very important meeting. I know about this project because I saw the first meeting, and I also work very close with Abilitai. And I also live in Indonesia. I'm married to an Indonesian woman. I have a child. Our marriage is recognized here in the Netherlands through the Indonesian embassy, etc. So I comply to all the regulations. But my question was, you say if a woman there in Indonesia has a child from a Dutchman and the Dutchman denies that, yes? Of course, you can, as a lawyer, you can always trace him here in the Netherlands, but I can prove, for example, that he went to Jakarta, from Schiphol to Jakarta. But if the child is born in Semarang or in Bandung, how can we prove that he was there that he is reasonably the father. Because if you go to court, yeah, before the court can say, okay, you must have a DNA test from you, that's in the privacy legislation, there must be some reason that the court believes that he really is the father. How can we do that investigation in Indonesia? For example, I can prove that he was there at the place at that time. Then we need the cooperation of the Indonesian authorities, like the police or immigration. So of course, you have to work with a lawyer in Indonesia. He can probably get all that information. And I have a network in Indonesia with all legal faculties of universities in big cities. And maybe this is something we can work with them, because it's a system. I used to work at the rechtswinkel in Groningen ages ago, but we use the same system. We use the universities, the students to spread the more knowledge, to help the people to, and we can also develop an app in Indonesia that people can use the HP to require or to ask for information or whatsoever. So there are possibilities also on the political level. I have an uncle who is a professor of law, but he's also a senator. And he will also cooperate in spreading the information, because I think the first main issue is to let the people be aware that this regulation exists, that they can benefit from it.
Okay, we keep it short, Mr. De Vretes. Maybe you would like also summary in bahasa. Jadi intinya adalah apabila anak tidak di Jakarta tapi dan istri tidak di Jakarta tetapi di daerah lain, misalkan di Semarang, lalu bagaimana melakukan prosedur membuktikan seperti itu, karena jauh. Dan harus ada kerjasama dengan universitas atau juga badan-badan lain di Indonesia. Betul? Okay. Maybe Mr. you would like to answer, or
Yes.
Mr.
Yes. What he is saying is, if a person, an alleged father, can prove that he was not in the vicinity of the woman, or he was not there at the time of conceiving a child, how can the court determine the paternity? Or can the court order a DNA test? And the question is, yes, the court will order a DNA test if there is some basic, well, not proof, but if there are basic documents that there has been some kind of a relationship, or you know the woman. And the court will also take into consideration that if you state that you are not the father of that child, that also that proof will be given by a DNA test. And the child has the way of right. The child is more important legally than the father, if it is like protecting privacy, right? So if the father says, yes, it will violate my privacy if DNA is taken from me, then the court still will say that the rights of the child and a possible determination of paternity will be in the benefit of the child. So that the child will be seen as legally more important than the man. And if the man or the former partner or this person will refuse to take the DNA, then the court will rule as the court will think is fit in this case. I had a case where the person refused to take the DNA test, and the court said it will not only prove DNA that you will be the father, but it can also prove that you are not the father. Now you refuse to take the DNA test, so we will rule because you ruined your possibility to prove that you are not the father, we will rule that you are the father of the child. So the argument that you want to prove that you were not in the vicinity is not a legal, valid argument when it is a proceeding of determination of paternity.
Is that, yeah, Mr. Kleweh?
Maybe it is in a less legal way of explaining it. The woman does not have to prove that the man is the father. There must be a plausible explanation for things happening. So if there is an SMS contact with the lady, or there was a nice selfie with them together, and then the lady says, look, I have a selfie with him, and he did it, well, mama knows best, then you have a few things to explain in court. And if your conscience is clean, and you're certainly not a father, and you know that, you will be the first one to run to court and say, how much DNA do you want? At least I would say. And if you are starting with stories of DNA is not reliable and things like that, then the court knows enough. Courts, judges are usually wise people.
Okay, Mr. De Freitas, I think it's clear enough for you. I will go on to the next question on the chat room. This person, a lady, will get married with the Dutch, but the Dutch man, he lives in and he's working in Germany. So which law will be applicable in this case? Is it Dutch law? And where can we get where can we do the marriage? Maybe
Okay.
Mr. Kroon can explain that.
The marriage.
Yes.
They want to get married, and they do not live in this country, right? But they can marry any place. They can marry in any place if they want. But if there is a Dutch citizenship, then the marriage should be reported also in this country.
So it doesn't matter where they get married.
It doesn't matter as long that's
and
the
the law of
then the law of this country will apply, of course.
Yeah.
Of this country, of this state. When you marry in the US, it's you don't have a US law. It's the state law.
Yes.
in this kind of cases. And it should be registered in this country when you have Dutch citizenship.
Oke, ya. Jadi hukum yang berlaku adalah hukum di mana dia melakukan pernikahan, tetapi harus didaftarkan juga di Belanda agar hukum Belanda bisa berlaku. Begitu. Okay, then it's clear, and I will go on with the questions on the floor. I see here Dea Christina. Would you like to share your, please, short question, Ibu Dea Christina?
Yeah, hello, good afternoon. I have a question. Where do we actually need to register our marriage? Because I've been married for 7 years and it's legally acknowledged in Indonesia. It was registered in the civil registry, but few years back, I registered to the municipality, so the gemeente, and then I only got a A4 paper without header, with a black and white print, just saying like, okay, married is registered. But basically, I couldn't see it anywhere because I was also not sure that it is really registered somewhere, because I did not get a kind of formal confirmation that it is registered. So now I'm wondering, where do we actually need to register our marriage in the Netherlands to be acknowledged by the Dutch law?
Mr. Hrun, maybe you want to
Yes.
answer, di mana kita bisa melakukan pendaftaran pernikahan?
The only obligation you have is to register it in the BRP. That's the civil registry. That's the registry in the municipality where you live.
Yeah.
So if you get an extract of
Yeah.
this civil registration,
Mhm.
and then you see on your extract marital status, and then it just says married and
Yeah.
nothing else, then
Yeah.
it's registered. So then you shouldn't be worrying about this. Then it's registered.
Okay. So
And this
basically,
also means that sorry to interrupt you, but it also means that the marriage has been acknowledged by the Dutch authorities.
okay. So basically, we only need to register it in the municipality where we live.
Absolutely right. Yes.
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 Okay.
That's the
Thank you.
obligation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Jadi harus didaftarkan di Gemeente setempat dengan melakukan pendaftaran BR namanya. Okay, the next question. Ibu Herlina, you can unmute and you can ask question. Yes.
Yes, all right. Thank you so much. Hi again. My name is Helena. So I just have very quite short question. So I've been living in the Netherlands with my boyfriend for like 5 years. And last year we bought a house, but because I haven't worked yet, so it was under his name. But then since last year, I've also already like working, and I also pay the mortgage for every month. And we are planning to get married maybe somewhere next year. So my questions is, because I think I remember I read somewhere that in 2018, there's a rules in the Netherlands that all like the house that we buy before the marriage will be our own. So what I have to do like before the marriage or during the marriage to make sure that I also have a right to the house that I will also pay for the mortgage. Thank you.
Yes, jadi ini pertanyaannya mengenai hak properti. Ibu Herlina akan melakukan pernikahan dan juga telah membeli rumah, tapi ada Undang-Undang 2018 yang mengatakan ada perubahan mengenai hak kepemilikan antara suami dan istri. Maka Mr. Hrun, maybe you can explain about this case.
Yes, but this is very specific. But in general, did she buy the house also? That I didn't understand this. Is the house in both names already or not?
No, the house is under only his name.
Only his name. Okay,
yes,
yeah.
Because by that time I didn't work yet, and it's impossible to get a mortgage, and we will get like a lower mortgage if we include both names. So it's only under his name.
Okay, and you do not have a registered partnership at this point?
I'm not really sure actually with the registered partnerships, because like, for example, my visa right now is stay as his family. Yes. So yeah, not really sure. Is it count as registered partnerships or not?
Not really, because
I don't think so.
No. You were right about the law you mentioned in 2018. This changing, so there is not a joint property automatically after the marriage anymore. This means if you want to change things and you want to have it as a joint property, this house, then you should go together with your future husband. You should go to a notary public to arrange this.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it's need to be arranged separately. It's not automatically become like a joint property after we get married.
No, after 2018, it's not automatically anymore. No.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And do you have?
Oh, that's yeah. Mungkin pertanyaannya, do you have any advice which notary that she can go?
No, you can.
Yeah.
You can just look in the general internet site for public notaries, and then then you can choose. But of course it must be a public notary specialized in family law.
Oke, baik.
Yeah.
Jadi
Thank you. Sorry, I have just like a small things. Like, do you have any advice for us, which is like just planning to get married, like what to check so we are sure that we are getting into this marriage and we know that things are fair?
Well, things should be fair before you marry, and you should really be. Yeah, you should really be sure about this before you marry, right? You should have confidence in each other before you marry. And if you believe that you are entitled to a joint property, then you should be able to discuss this before you marry with your future husband. And if there is really confidence between the two of you, then he should, well, not make any problem about going to a notary public to arrange this.
Okay. I'm sorry.
That's not legal advice. That's some kind of psychological
Right.
psychological view of me.
Yes, I'm sorry we have to stop the discussion here. Mohon maaf, kita harus menyudahi diskusinya di sini. Jangan khawatir, teman-teman masih bisa mengirimkan pertanyaan ke emailnya Mbak Imelda yang ada di flyer. Thank you very much for Bapak Mr. Kleweg and Mr. Groen for the discussion. The participants will send the questions to us, and then probably we will still send you the questions from the participants. Okay, and I will give the floor to Bapak Ferry for the conclusion, please.
Terima kasih Mbak Yasmin, Bapak Ibu sekalian peserta webinar. Saya yakin Bapak Ibu, khususnya para ibu-ibu ya yang udah hadir di sini. Terima kasih, dan banyak informasi yang kita peroleh terkait dengan undang-undang pernikahan di Belanda yang terbaru ini. Dan upaya ini kami lakukan, KBRI lakukan untuk lebih sebagai upaya perlindungan KBRI kepada warga negara Indonesia yang ada di Belanda. Di samping juga webinar seperti saat ini, sebelumnya kita juga telah melakukan beberapa webinar yang bisa dilihat kembali di akun YouTube KBRI Den Haag. Dan webinar kita kali ini juga sudah kita rekam dan akan kita upload, unggah di akun YouTube KBRI. Jadi bagi yang ingin mengulang kembali atau mendengar kembali penjelasan-penjelasan tadi, nanti dapat diakses webinar ini di akun YouTube KBRI. Demikian singkat dari saya. Nantikan acara webinar kami KBRI berikutnya bekerja sama dengan teman-teman Mbak Yasmin dan Mbak Yuke, Mbak Imelda. Nantikan pengumuman berikutnya. Sekian, terima kasih.
Iya, terima kasih buat semuanya, untuk all participants yang sudah ada di sini. Dan saya cuma punya waktu 1 menit. Terima kasih, dan tolong feedbacknya disampaikan juga ke Imelda atau ke grup Facebook juga bisa, grup ILH atau grup mana aja. Dan tolong jangan lupa nanti pertanyaan yang belum dijawab tadi sudah disampaikan oleh Mbak Yasmin akan dikirim ke email masing-masing. Terima kasih semuanya. Sampai ketemu lagi. Salam dan tui.
Terima kasih. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Groen, Pak Kleweg.
Bye.
Dag.
Bye.
Have a great time. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Doei doei.